surprises and shattered dreams.
If you're someone who loves it when roadshow visitors are told their precious item is worth far less than they thought, you're in for a treat on today's Priceless Antiques Roadshow. As much as I enjoy the valuable porcelain and rare antiques that we regularly see on the Antiques Roadshow, I get just as much pleasure, if not more, from the odd and unusual that turns up occasionally.
I mean, when you see a pencil, you don't think twice about it. It's such a common object. And when I first saw it, I had no idea at all what was about to be revealed.
Inside it, as I pull it apart, is a very tightly rolled map.
And expert Judith Miller takes us back to her roots, revisiting the junk shops and bargain basements which first fired her collecting zeal.
This place was here in the 70s when I had a flat just down there in our place, and just looking in the window, I'm just hoping that some of the things are still the same price as they were then.
And Hilary Kay remembers an unexpected encounter with a rock and roll visitor.
And I was standing there minding my own business, and he said, "Do you jive?"
Can you jive?
I can.
There's nothing our experts like more than a good secret and being able to reveal the truth behind objects for all the world to see. And such hidden stories come in all forms. It might be a family secret that's never previously been told, or perhaps it's an unseen compartment that's been cunningly concealed inside a cabinet.
You've got this little press button in the back, which you press, which brings out the secret drawer with all your dice.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's nice. Look at that. There's a little bit of furniture on its own, isn't it? Oh, look, there's a secret drawer.
I never knew that.
Did you?
No.
Well, there you are, you see. Oh,
somewhere.
One of these secret things.
Absolutely. If you turn this round.
Oh, my God. Oh, look at those.
Our team love to find all those hidden compartments. But just as special is when the secrets we're uncovering reveal the human stories behind the objects.
I think one of the wonderful things about what we do is that when we're presented with something we haven't seen before, we haven't met the person before, we're actually looking at something which is not just the object, but part of their lives, part of their family history.
But when it comes to uncovering long-lost family stories, the master of the art has to be Paul Atterbury.
I think we're in a very strange and actually quite extraordinary position, because very often we are being let into family history, which we shouldn't see. It's not public stuff. It's secrets about people's lives and what they did and what they didn't do, revealed by their possessions.
The arts and crafts movement in Britain was a great production of pieces like this.
I remember particularly a quite ordinary sort of arts and crafts cabinet that we saw, I think at Middleport, where the piece normally wouldn't have been filmed.
Why have you got it?
It was left to me about 10 years ago by my godmother.
But what it revealed was a lovely insight into private lives at that time.
Who's that?
That's Auntie Joan, my godmother.
So this is how it comes to you?
Yes.
What do we know about Auntie Joan?
Well, she met my mum when they were about 12 years old. They became firm friends. She never married. She was a very quiet and reserved lady outwardly, and quite a pillar of the community, involved in the church and what have you.
She was a spinster and fairly staid. And then when you turned this cabinet round, a completely different story was revealed.
I noticed written on the back is a message, a secret message, it must have been, and it says, "I love my darling very much."
Yes.
Now, tell me the story.
She was in the WAF during the war, and she, at some point, there was a function and she didn't have any transport, and an RAF warrant, serving RAF warrant officer, Warren Adams, Bunny, was sent to fetch her to this function, whatever it was, and I think it was love ever after. And he eventually moved in and lived with her, and sometime when they were painting the room where this lived, he must have moved it forward and painted the message on the back.
What it is revealed is that this woman, who apparently was a very straight church-going spinster of the community, had a live-in lover at a period when such things were frowned upon, and that he'd hidden this message. And I'd love to know was, when he wrote that message, when he was doing decorating, did he tell her, or did he just push it back against the wall? And maybe she never knew for years till she moved it out again.
A cabinet like this, nicely made, is going to be £400 or £500. You know, it's that sort of price range. But I think with that added component, you know, you
Like
can't put
that.
a price on that. How
That's
much
right.
is romance?
Yes, of course.
One of Paul's most emotional encounters was in Exmouth, where he stumbled upon an unexpected family secret.
Every now and then you get an object which is much more personal, and through something, some component, some part of that object, it suddenly throws a spotlight on family history that otherwise would be completely lost.
Now, I was lucky enough earlier this year to go to Canada. I'd been before, but this is the first time I got really involved in what is now called First Nation material.
To come to a show and suddenly find, spread out on a table, a really top-grade collection of, in this case, Cree beadwork, beautiful pieces, all in fantastic condition. You thought, well, for God's sake, what's happened here?
Well, I first remember this stuff as a child. We used to play with this, my brother and my sister and I. And my grandfather travelled from Scotland when he was age 18 to work for the Hudson Bay Company in Canada, and eventually managed the trading post at Churchill. He married a Cree Indian lady.
Hang on, stop there.
Sorry.
That must have been terribly unusual at the time.
They didn't talk about it.
Blow me, he secretly marries a Cree lady. Completely undone. Absolutely not the way to do it. You might have had associations with native women. You certainly didn't marry them.
It's taboo to marry somebody from the colonies or whatever.
But she was your grandmother.
Yeah.
So you never met her, obviously.
No, and we had this photograph.
What's this?
This is a photograph of her with my father and my uncle Ronnie. I think they're aged about.
So hang on a minute. So this is your grandmother with your father and your uncle.
Yeah.
The grandfather must have loved her, because if she was just his mistress, he wouldn't have bothered to marry her. And he had two sons. And then he died. And you think, well, OK, what happens now?
My father and his brother were shipped back to Scotland to live with their aunt.
As children?
Yes, children, yeah.
So they were taken from their mother?
Yeah.
And she never saw them again?
No.
It was a sort of spine-tingling moment that it wasn't really about the stuff. I could see her losing her children, and in desperation she sent them over to England with a whole mass of stuff that she'd collected to say, don't forget your background. This is you. I was your mother. This is my culture. Take this stuff and remember me.
I mean, in effect, you're quarter Cree, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Have you always felt proud of that?
I have personally, yeah, but my father never talked about it.
Have you been to Canada?
No, I'm hoping to.
You must, because, you know, you'll find you fit in. You know, it's your tradition, it's your background, it's your
absolutely.
culture.
Yeah.
I was completely taken aback by this story. It was very emotive to me, because on the one hand, I'd been prepared to just look at this stuff and talk about it, but suddenly to have this extraordinary hidden story revealed was just breathtaking.
So has Richard got any further in his search for his true identity? We caught up with him to find out.
After I was on the Antiques Roadshow in Exmouth, some of my relatives in Canada actually saw the programme in Canada and made contact, and it snowballed from there.
Since then, Richard's Canadian cousins have become a big part of his life. He's also been able to add many photographs to his collection. Images of his father as a young child, and of the outpost where his grandfather worked.
It does feel strange to see those photographs, but it's exciting as well. My family have always wondered what happened to him and where he worked. We had a rough idea about his lifestyle and his work, but it's filled in a lot of the gaps. I would like to go with my wife and my two sons to visit my family in Canada. I can imagine it being very emotional and exciting. Yeah, I'd love to spend some time over there.
I can't wait to hear how that turns out. A very different kind of secret came our way in Keswick. Hugh Scully presented the Antiques Roadshow for 19 years. But he says what he learned in the Lake District that day was so surprising, he'll never forget it.
very often on the Antiques Roadshow, we would see commoner garden objects.